the metaphor of breath being very similar to the correct metaphor of human exchange.
Yeah.
And that we've forgotten what human exchange and conscious breath is.
Yeah, conscious breath versus unconscious breath. I mean, basically it's the difference between, you know, drinking a glass of sink water and yet drinking a glass of spring water from like Mount Shasta. And one is going to give you so much more of the nutrients and the molecular and electromagnetic structure that you need. And so what I like about this crypto is we're going to be entering a conversation today with you that really gets into more of the feeling of a conscious network that is serving humanity and is serving us ascending to, you know, just a higher state of mind and being that's not about old paradigms, old narratives that are degenerative, that require a degenerative way of being, and instead something that's more conscious. And so that's, you know, the reason why you and I work together, for the people that are on the call, is that you and I both are, we aspire to something greater. Our values are not just about 3D. And you and I both want to help people bring greater wealth to themselves and also to their higher self. And so that's why the breath is something that, you know, it's like, well, why is this guy who, you know, yes, I've been involved in crypto since 2015, and I'm a former media executive from Silicon Valley, and I have a lot of insight into the way that the narrative is that we get to see on, you know, the TV or, you know, on Drudge is merely a starting point to discern, read the tea leaves of what actually is happening. And how do we see through all of the war game narratives that are flying in our face and distracting us from what is really true, which I want people on this call to tune into, that it's actually here, and it's actually with the breath. And it's actually, then you can start to feel someone like you, for instance, and the truth of what you're bringing to the table. So that we don't need to sift through all of these narratives. And we can be confident that we're doing what we've got to do for the family and beyond. So the conscious breath is something that I'm offering to everybody on this call. And if you want to do breath work with me, I do a free analysis with people, and then we do a session on Zoom. And some people on here have done it with me, and they've been great sessions. And I'm based in San Diego, and I also teach Qigong. So, so yeah, so this is just a great, I'm excited about today's talk because Rob and I talk always before we come on these calls, and we try to just distill what is most essential. And Rob, you know, Rob can just start one place, and then he enlightens us with a lot of,
well, I'll tell you what conscious breath means to me, because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". The one thing I promised myself, and I broke the promise to myself when I was a late teen, early 20s, is I would never let myself get like those offensive, defensive line coaches on the football team who really did look like they were once athletes and had the belly and they're like out of breath and they're out of shape. And I didn't think I'd let it happen, but once I started having kids, it happened, right? And then we stabbed westward from the East Coast, and I'm living at high altitude now. So between not working out, you know, and maybe by confessing this, I'll get my ass in gear. So that's why I'm doing it kind of as a confession. But by not working out, living at altitude, if I don't breathe consciously, I am never fully there because we have less oxygen at altitude. So when you breathe consciously, you start to understand that you can control your consciousness level. And most people are unconscious of this. Most people don't live at altitude. So the metaphor carries over with, like, we spend money every day, and they're just ones and zeros in our smartphones now. And they used to be entries in a checkbook, and, you know, and they used to be just dollar bills and wallets and coins. And the problem is that over the generations, we've been conditioned generation by generation. Even if your great-grandparents were really smart and on top of shit, it doesn't matter, because then your grandparents got more stressed out, then your parents got more stressed out. And then when you're going week to week, month to month, no one's getting philosophical about what money is anymore. But you pull a dime out of your pocket, if you can find change these days, it's probably not a silver dime,
right.
Which means it's a token. It's like a fiat token, just like a shiny, counterfeit of a dime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, not to interrupt you, but I do want to move us into what the main talking points of today are.
Right. The main talking point is the war game between real money and fake money, right?
Right. And setting up a system of breadth of money exchange, of energy exchange that can keep up pace with today. And so now, Rob, I think, let's get into the first point, which is the macro war that's happening right now, the macro war perspective, and just go from there.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into the big road to Ruta theory. You can follow Bix Weir for that. He's very easy to follow. But the gist is that in 1912, there was a massive discovery made. And the discovery was kind of like a disruptive level of gold reserves were found in Colorado, like in the Colorado River Basin and in the Grand Canyon area. There's very interesting side tangents and X-Files to that, because it looks like it wasn't just like, mineable gold. It was like pre-mined gold stacked and stocked away. So that's a beautiful rabbit hole that can entertain you for months if you want to put in the research. But the fact of the matter is, there was this Rothschild clique of associated families that for a very long time were trying to commandeer and centralize most of the banks in Europe. And they've been trying to do this in the United States for a long time. The Civil War may have been more about banking than slavery, and slavery was kind of like a side issue almost. So these guys were always trying to get their tentacles back into us since the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. So when they found this disruptively large cache of gold in the Grand Canyon area, they're like, okay, here's our trigger point. We've got to get everyone together on Jekyll Island. The bottom line is, they said, okay, you've been fighting this for a long time. You want it to remain gold-backed and sovereign, but you've got all this gold in the Grand Canyon that would knock the value of gold down to, the value of silver or copper. And now's the time to take control of your currency. Let us be the private corporation. They're not asking, they're not sales pitching. They got a gun to like his head, and they're like, you're going to let us do this. So what happens after the founding of the Federal Reserve in 1913? Well, we begin to have world wars and constant state of war. We begin to get income taxes. We begin to get, color of law, legal bullying taking place. So, we're so many generations removed from 1913 now, over 107 years, that we think it's normal to have coins in our pocket that aren't actual silver, dollars in our pocket that say Federal Reserve note instead of exchangeable for $1 of silver or $1 of gold. And, some people are like, okay, that's fine, Rob, heard it all in my school textbook. It's not, I'm not into tinfoil hat. But the thing is, if you're above it all and you're hustling for the buck and you're just, got your nose to the grindstone, you're not going to be ready for a mega shift, because the mega shift, it's imperative that you understand history and have the bird's eye view perspective to even make it through. So what's going on here? So according to Road to Ruta theory, trying to go as fast as possible, keeping it tight. Once you enter into a debt fiat model, they know that mathematically the end game is always failure. But there are these embedded S-curves. It's like, what can we get away with on this cycle? What can we get away with on this cycle? How long can we extend the extinction? And they basically extend the extinction of the fiat currency by making it a central world reserve currency and being in a constant state of war and stress. So you're always looking this way, this way, this way, as they're centralizing all of the fiat wealth. When you get to the end game, which they wanted to be 2001 with 9/11, and then it got pushed out to 2018. And then my research is telling me that at 2018, they didn't want to bring it out yet because the deep state war and the war against Trump and all this, like behind the wizard's curtain stuff. Oh, wouldn't have been a clean transition. It would have been in the middle of a very confusing crisis. So they appear to have pushed it out to 2020, and this is year 0. Now, if you looked at the video that I put up in the group from 4 years ago, I was really right on the mark about some stuff, and I was really off the mark. I was off the mark about Snowden. I was off the mark about Benjamin Fulford remaining a good, source of intel after a certain period. Because once Trump came in, you couldn't use Fulford for anything. He already hated Trump and wasn't thinking clearly. So, but half the stuff I got right. When I was saying that Bitcoin would be central, Bitcoin was just hitting $606. It was just entering the 600s. And I was saying that it was going to be central. I don't even think I knew what Ethereum was at that point. And I still don't take Ethereum too seriously for a lot of reasons, but I'll get back to that later in this conference, because in order to keep this focused, this is like a macro war game. And the macro war games are a crypto war. And here's my last intro statement to kind of challenge the listener or the student, however you see yourself. Do you really think the most maniacally warlike central government since the Roman Empire is just going to go into the end game of fiat, leaving it up to chaos theory? These guys who have put trillions of dollars into underground ultra high tech assets that we don't even know about, 21 to 30 to 60 trillion black budget infrastructure. Do you really think these guys, because I grew up with some of them, and the arrogance is spooky. It's like they really do see themselves as, oh, I'm the engineer, you guys are in my ant farm, and I'm going to do whatever I want to this ant farm. It's my job, it's my inheritance to have this responsibility. And the eugenic Nazi level inclination is off the charts, right? So do you really think that these guys would let it all go? No, they're not. So, but Bitcoin blindsided them. So Bitcoin was like a disruptive event that they weren't ready for. Here's the thing about Bitcoin that's different than the rest of crypto. Bitcoin can't be centralized. You can centralize the miners in China, in their megalomaniacal attempt to get all of the mining operations, or more than 50% under Chinese control. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And even all of Roger Vere's fears about Bitcoin becoming nothing more than collateral and not usable doesn't matter, because if you have a side chain that works with Bitcoin rather than competing against it, that becomes part of the Bitcoin extension chain. And Charlie Lee of Litecoin doesn't call himself Satoshi Light because he's got an ego issue and he's loopy and goofy and on drugs. No, this is one of the most steady hand, steady mind, steady stomached guy ever. I mean, his father was clearly connected to, international business circles, probably intelligence. Charlie Lee comes to the United States, immediately gets into MIT, and then immediately gets on as a senior officer at Google. Google is a very close holding of Alphabet. Alphabet has stakeholders throughout the Pentagon and the deep state, okay? So Charlie's not calling himself Satoshi Light and perfectly cloning Bitcoin, but as like a nitrous oxide amplifier to Bitcoin to fight Bitcoin, like a guy like Roger Ver. Roger Ver was very inspirational to me, especially when he was brought to tears in the early documentaries talking about freedom and money and government shouldn't be able to control human exchange. I bought a hook, line, and sinker until he created Bitcoin Cash and started competing against Bitcoin. So who's the dark horse here? And again, this is part of a different part of the discussion, maybe more toward the end, but I want to plant the seed. Who are the dark horses? Because you've got a bunch of popular altcoins pumping. Everyone's dropping the terminology of DeFi, which is kind of insulting to your intelligence if you've been into Bitcoin since 2015, 2016, like me and Aaron. Because we're attracted to Bitcoin because it was the ultimate, holy shit, how will we ever control this viral money DeFi? I mean, it's like, wow, what will government look like post-Bitcoin? We were already into it because of the DeFi, but what they do, like they always do, is they commandeer terminology and they reprogram through just flooding, like linguistic psyops, just paid PR marketing. They get terminology in your head so that you're on their narrative. You've got this war game taking place where the guys that want to maintain power are centralized. They want to remain centralized. And you can know them by their arrest records. I mean, there's a core group of guys that were arrested in Spain for the largest cache of child pornography ever found by Interpol. And these are the same guys who are the key godfathers behind Tether, EOS, Bitfinex, blockchains located out here in Nevada. You know, like the big establishment, you know, trying to brand blockchain as their baby. Aaron, I don't mind if you unmute yourself, because hearing a little feedback from your mic actually keeps me on track. But if everyone else can remain muted, that's cool. I don't mind being able to see and hear a little bit of you. It keeps me on track.
Okay.
But long story short, I mean, if you can help focus me in a little bit, Aaron, like,
yeah.
What is the best conclusion to this line of thought? Because I could go into 12 directions.
What got me first when we spoke last, just you and me privately, was as it relates to, you know, the war game is designed to trick us, and in the sense that, you know, the BTC is the main point, but there's others that are going to be powering the body of this new system.
Should I just jump right into the new infrastructure?
Yeah, and the four that you see there, the four that you see are critical. And what does that mean for us as we're thinking about crypto in a new way, not just as a BTC maximalism, but also still knowing that it's like the skeletal structure of what we're doing.
So as far as decentralizing human exchange, Bitcoin does it electronically. A lot of people misunderstand. They're like, if the grid goes down or there's rolling blackouts or EMPs, what happens to Bitcoin? Well, I'll tell you what happens to Bitcoin. Everyone that holds their keys offline will be able to plug right into the blockchain, which is distributed. So let's say that 51% of Bitcoin miners, and they don't just mine the coin, they're actually, the miners are the transaction switchboard too. That's what they get paid for. Let's just say that China goes offline, as it possibly could. The Three Gorges Dam, let's say that goes, China loses 1/3 of its population due to chaos and famine from that happening. And then there's more problems. It doesn't matter if the miners go offline or if there's an EMP or a solar blast or anything, because once the grid's back up, whoever makes it through the eye of the needle, okay, doesn't necessarily have to be a grid down. I believe that there's mercy out there. I don't believe our apocalypse has to be, you know, a huge depopulation event. Little bit tangential. If we get away with only a 50% reduction, we're pretty lucky historically, but let's say it's only like a 10% decimation. It comes back online. Worst case scenario, Bitcoin's a blockchain and it's distributed. It's decentralized. So everyone's keys plug back into that fractal distributed blockchain. Now you get a guy like Roger Ver who's very passionate about Bitcoin, but he thought messianically that he had to save it, so he hard forked it. Now, Bitcoin Cash is a popular cryptocurrency and people use it, and a lot of people actually make exchanges with it. But who's the dark horse? The dark horse is Satoshi Light. The dark horse is a kid who may have been groomed most of his life to create the Bitcoin extension chain. And what is it about Litecoin? Well, Litecoin is a perfect clone of Bitcoin, perfect, except for the upgrades and the increased capabilities, including smart contracts. Now, just tangentially, let's take a side note. If we're looking at the DeFi space, and I'm going to look at it right here on my pad that's off to the side, and you've got these DeFi coins pumping. They're pumping off of a false narrative because they're leveraging themselves off of a non-scarcity model, which is the Ethereum model, which is a nice skeleton for maybe giving birth to some hybrid animals you want to experiment on, but there's no scarcity. Why is Ethereum not really pumping? Because there's an unlimited amount of Ethereum. Why is Ethereum not considered secure? because Ethereum, any aspect of any part of Ethereum could succumb to a 51% attack, hypothetically, but Bitcoin could not. Hypothetically, I mean, you need like a galaxy of quantum computers coming at it all the time to even have to go back and change a transaction on Bitcoin, which is part of Roger's criticism that, hey, it's becoming like a gold brick, guys, like follow me. But he didn't get the blessing to do that. Charlie Lee got the blessing to do that. So during 2018, Charlie Lee is like meeting with Putin's people. This came up in the alternative news as a data point. You had to be able to read it correctly. I mean, you just don't read the headline, you read between the lines. Oh, Charlie's in Russia. What's he talking to them about? Oh, Charlie's in Brazil. What's he talking to them about? Charlie's meeting with the EU, IMF in Brussels. Why? Because only Charlie's extension chain will be the, in engineering where everyone's using the same size wrench, the standard. I'm not grasping the right word. I'm not getting it out of my mouth, but there's a standard for extension of the Bitcoin blockchain that only Litecoin will be able to pull off. Now, why are certain DeFi tokens pumping? Because they're solving the Ethereum problem. The Ethereum problem is, how do you do cross-chain communication in smart contracts? And you do that with like Chainlink, VeChain, but who's really going to get it done? So if Ethereum in the near future is eventually spotlighted and revealed to be nothing more than a fiat on-ramp and the last stand of the bankers, trying to re-centralize crypto, trying to, catch their breath for maybe one more decade, then yeah, you want to own a couple DeFi tokens that will inflate and bubble-ize and become bubbles along with that fiat on-ramp, okay? Because they're trying to limit the Bitcoin blockchain by limiting on-ramping and pulling it in. You know what? In a nutshell, the dark horse is not what you think it is. Most people are thinking, okay, what's the next Bitcoin? What's the next Ethereum? There are Ethereum killers, but you only want to look at the ones that are going to cross-chain with Litecoin, because that's a de facto cross-chain with Bitcoin, and that's ADA. Now, do you want a coin that will pump with the next bubble? Yeah, I do too. I don't like leaving money on the table. I'm not a trader, but I'll swing in and out over a number of months. I don't consider that trading. Most guys are like day traders these days. So I own a little bit of Link. So 5-6% of the portfolio is in Link. 4-5% of the portfolio is in ADA. I think I might own 5% or less in DGB for another reason altogether. But what is the core chain, and what is all of this World of Warcraft making war on the core chain? Well, part of it is Donald Trump himself. Donald's a gold bug. He wants to resurrect the US dollar under a blockchain gold dollar. I don't think Donald was expecting Bitcoin because he's not on the side of Bitcoin. I don't expect him to. He's POTUS. He's looking out for the citizens, and Bitcoin is so disruptive to everyone, including the US dollar, switch over, that he's got to take a stance. But I still believe in gold, so at least Donald's got gold and a constitutional dollar blockchain on his mind, and that's still good. So what will it come down to? Well, we've got like a three-way war. It's like a triangle. You've got Bitcoin that seems to have come out of the exosphere. You've got Satoshi Light that's like, okay, once people caught on that Bitcoin is going to be so dangerous, number one, 4 million of them got lost in landfills because no one knew it would be worth this much when they threw out their laptop. You've got probably another 5 or 6 million Bitcoin that are never, ever going to come out of the wallets because they're considered gold nuggets now. And the next generation of bankers know that they never have to spend the Bitcoin. They just have to prove they have it, right? So you got a limited number of X number of millions of Bitcoin that will ever be traded. And it's very, very coordinated suppression by Tether and Binance working together like puppeteers, holding it down. Then there's a layer of futures and another layer of derivatives. But the thing is, as we're finding in silver, math always wins in the end. And when people are demanding like 1,000-ton silver delivery contracts, it blows up the COMEX. So the analogy is that it will eventually blow up Tether and Binance. So when Tether and Binance blow up, Bitcoin, you might not be able to find a listing for its price. There might be like, oh, this exchange is saying it's this much, but in Iran, they're paying 40K for it. What? Yeah, there's this underground exchange in Hong Kong that's really run out of Vietnam, and they're paying 50K. But you're still seeing 10, 11K, kind of like what we're seeing in silver, where people will pay almost anything to get a delivery, even though it's got a list price. That's what I think is going to happen with Bitcoin. There's going to be a big moment where everything goes black and then gaps up. And if Roger Ver still has a BCH where people like are willing to buy pizza with it, good for him, because he's put in the sweat equity. But the God's honest truth is Charlie Lee was preordained. And he is the Bitcoin extension chain. I think LTC is going to go 4-to-1, well, 15-to-1, 4-to-1, and then maybe parity with Bitcoin. And then it's going to be seen as the BTC, LTC smart chain. And then everything they're doing over on DeFi, like Link and VeChain, all of that interoperability, and ADA, which I think is going to make it survive because it's got interoperability with Litecoin, all of that is just going to end up serving Bitcoin to onboard more and more market cap onto Bitcoin. So that's how we get to a $10 million Bitcoin, even if the definition of Bitcoin is some ratio of BTC to LTC. This is not because I'm emotionally attached to Litecoin. Sometimes it feels like it. Because when you have faith in something, you got to weather a 3-year bear market and maintain your thesis. Sometimes you're wondering, is it me? Is it just my infatuation? No, it's not, because anytime I reality check myself and I do the analysis, Litecoin shows up as the Bitcoin extension chain, and it does it through fungibility. And fungibility is done through anonymity. And anonymity on Litecoin is done through sidechains, Nimble, Wimble, and then you get an atomic swap with BTC. And once you have an atomic swap with BTC, and no one else has the atomic swap, then they've got to get it with Litecoin like ADA did. So you've got to get an atomic swap with Litecoin to get access to atomic swaps with Bitcoin. So Litecoin is now the smart chain bouncer. So I have a weakness where I go too deep into a tangent and require editing, direction. So Aaron, get me back on track. Tell me where you think you want to go.
Yeah, and the last part I think is just connecting. You were going to talk about LTC, Digi, ADA, and BTC, which you've covered off on. Do you want to talk about any other sidechain talk?
Yeah, one, because everything that we're discussing is replacing the global financial infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the organs, the moving parts, the nervous system. But what if the main war against Bitcoin and its extension chains, the reason that they're even able to slow us down and psyop us with bad journalism is because they control the bigger infrastructure. What's the bigger infrastructure? Well, 52% of the entire internet is centralized under one company. Off the top of my head, I forget it, but I'll footnote it or I'll edit it in later. Or we'll put it on the screen on the edit. But one company went down one day. It got hacked one day. We heard about it in the alt headlines like a week ago, and we actually had half the web go down. Sometimes you get a glitchy day on YouTube and you don't get your videos to stream, and you're like, oh, does YouTube have something against the message? But it really does get glitchy sometimes because they're testing the system with hacks and things. But when half of the web goes down, that proves to you it's way too centralized. Okay, YouTube has a near monopoly on streaming video, but what if they couldn't censor you because a duplicate version of the same YouTube upload wasn't uploaded on BitChute or Steam or something like that, that's where that's hard to navigate and hard to search and slow streaming because they're the underdog. What if the backbone, spinal column of the internet itself became completely shattered and decentralized? Well, that would be theta. What if the Internet of Things had a nanoprocessor in everything that we use? Now, I'm not into the transhumanism, Internet of Things, 5G dystopia, and I'm not going to tell you it's benevolent. I will tell you that with Huawei out of the picture and Trump in charge, there's a chance we could get something that's called 5G or 6G that's more of a Tesla frequency that doesn't interfere with biology, and that would allow interoperability within the Internet of Things. But here's the thing, guys, don't get caught up in terminology, because the terminology has been commandeered by the enemy. If you really want to bottom line this, really want to buy, hey Al Russo, how you doing, bro? BTC, ADA, and LTC are real good picks for a core. You're going to do fine. But I guess my point is this: as long as you've got rogue Pentagon, rogue deep state, Alphabet, Google type billionaires aggregating and controlling and centralizing internet bandwidth, you're never going to get the acceleration into the new sci-fi world that's decentralized, free, upwardly, extropian, the opposite of entropy. You're not going to get that kind of civilization if your internet isn't distributed the way you're distributing and decentralizing your money. And only theta is going to do that. And let me tell you something. If you follow Twitch or Steemit or some of these other things, or you're a fan of BitChute, I can't navigate BitChute and I can't get it to play the way I want it to play, okay, when I want it to. Theta gives you 4 to 8K, ultra fast 60 FPT streaming seamlessly without any glitchiness, because tens of millions of Samsung devices are acting like microservers. So when you get down to the nano server level, and then you get this Elon Musk style, like 1,000 low orbiting satellites keeping the entire network going, you've got more and more evidence that you will not be able to control content on the web. And anyone that thinks I'm being naive, you don't know my background if you think I'm being naive. And also, if you think I'm being naive about it, here's another thing. Why would Alphabet, Google, YouTube buy up such a large multi-billion chunk of theta token, T-fuel, and nodes? We're not just talking secondary nodes, we're talking prime validator nodes. So what they're realizing is, as long as we can control the Google, YouTube brand, and people are habitually programmed to just think of YouTube, Google, we can continue to censor under the brand. But if a Napster comes by, remember Napster, guys, early, late 90s? Mm-hmm. And they made a business model out of stealing, but somehow they were heroes. And I mean, I didn't have a philosophical position. I was just amazed that it was happening, right? Well, what if you got a Napster that couldn't be stopped? And part of the Napster app was copying everything that Alphabet, Google, YouTube uploads, and then tries to take down, and then you've got cached. And then you hyperstream that to the whole world. I mean, you're kind of getting into a Running Man Schwarzenegger type reverse dystopia after that happens. I mean, we're hitting sci-fi world with theta. Only theta is going to give you the Neil Stephenson metaverse from Snow Crash, where like you plug into a VR reality and your hands and your bodysuit put you into an altered state where you can't tell if you're in your house standing on your pad or like your sensor pad, or you're actually in the metaverse. That will only happen through theta. And if you look at what they're doing in Minecraft, that blocky, character show, like the video game that kids like, where everything's blocky. Well, what they did was they built a gorgeous, like almost Atlantean, but at least like high Greek mega complex architecture of a library. And what they did is they hid every file that's being censored on the web, every narrative that's being rewritten, every Orwellian Big Brother stunt done by Alphabet Google is being protected and archived in this Minecraft VR library. Imagine that 1,000,000 times redundant and so interactive that when you put on your Googles your goggles, where you put on your Google goggles, and your gloves and your bodysuit, you're going through the Alexandrian library stacks. And think about it, when we finally get control of the corridors under St. Peter's, possibly, I heard it's hundreds of miles of stacks if you zigzag and try to walk it all, you know. If you could get all of those ancient manuscripts kind of photo scanned and put into a Theta library, you can have at your fingertips all of the knowledge of mankind that's been commandeered and hidden away, kind of like at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're putting the Ark in this big, like, you know, storage facility. You can go to that storage facility in your VR suit, and you can do research. And you'll have AI avatar butlers helping you right and left, you know, with any kind of accent or personality. You know, see Ready Player One, if you can. Ready Player One is a pretty good video stream, movie download, whatever, to give you an idea of what the potential of Theta is. Because Ready Player One shows a metaverse without limits, and there's real money, real monetary influence trying to corner real estate on the metaverse in the same way that they did in Minecraft, where they built that library in Minecraft. Aaron, pull me in there. Because I forget where I'm going with it.
Well, no, actually, well, you know, I'm all about, you know, the IRL, the in real life, and but one of the use cases that you brought up is it's Theta will exist and it's representative of the metaverse, which means that we're going to have to interact. There will be some interaction with the real world. It exists. There will be the crossover is white glove service of storing your private keys for your crypto.
Thank you, because that's a great point. Can I take over from there?
That is the practical use of this in my mind. I like to kind of conjure up my own Ready Player One, but it has more of a nature-based kind of just with the stars. That's my lineage. So, but regardless, that I found interesting as a use case. And the larger point again that you were talking about is that Theta. You haven't really veered a lot from your lodestar of where crypto needs to be in your portfolio. And so this is a very big update for you to be sharing. And so that
I have more Theta than BTC. I have more Theta than Bitcoin. Because Theta it's hyper libertarian. So you've got all the bad guys rushing into Theta, trying to pull probably the entire dark web into Theta. They're going to try to pull the Napster model into Theta. And if it wasn't a threat, why the hell would Google, YouTube, why the hell would Alphabet, Google basically be told the limit of what they're allowed to buy? That was interesting. It's like they're not allowed to buy every node available on Theta because it's not available. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you look at what they're doing on Minecraft with that Alexandria VR library and all of the games and gambling that are going to be streaming on Theta, then you got to ask yourself, what would a crypto bank look like? So this is where I wanted to segue into crypto bank, Aaron, because crypto bank could be based on transparent smart contracts where you're not giving the bank your money for like a CD rate, but you're like, I would like to look through the brochure of like where I'd like the money invested. And then you could actually get interest generated via your crypto bank account where you can hold your keys if you want, but if you're willing to give your keys to a trusted white glove fiduciary service that you feel comfortable with and has a lot of fail-safes built in, like anti-corruption, anti-theft fail-safes, then you could get like a yield of between 5 to 8% on your money while knowing that your crypto is being used to invest in desalinization, food forests, like organic hypergrows, vertical grow warehouses in urban areas feeding people. Right. And that's what I'm into. I would like to see the earth remediated. I'd like to see the oceans cleaned. And I would like to see an irrigation system set up throughout the deserts of Africa and Asia that look kind of like some of the geological evidence of a massive irrigation of project in the deserts of Atlantean times. And I can upload that on one of my other groups on Facebook, but I have dozens of photos, satellite photos, where these are not natural rivers. These are all gridded out, and they knew how to irrigate back then. And I would like to see the world remediated with hyper irrigation, food forests, turn the earth back into a garden before we really like expand out from the solar system and enter the galactic community. You know?
Where does Theta fit in, and is it a utility outside of the other three? I think you touched on that question. That's
So Theta is not a currency per se, but it would act as a medium of exchange on a new distributed World Wide Web Internet 2.0. And I am so gung-ho on BTC and LTC as the extension chain that until I really discovered Theta and really fully understood it to the point I got goosebumps, I was 2/3 to 4/5 LTC, BTC, and everything else was just like icing on the cake or side dishes. Now Theta is like 2/3 of my portfolio, because when an embryo develops, you know, after the heart starts, you got to get the skeletal system and the nervous system in there. As far as XRP, man, there's so many people that are emotionally attached to it. Now, I'm gonna go as hard as I can, as fast as I can to XRP. These are facts and not opinions. I'm gonna respect your intelligence and our time by just giving you facts I can prove. Okay? Ripple, as a company, is doing amazing networking and connecting among the legacy financial system. I believe Ripple is going to survive right up until the final up level occurs, where, like, you know, it's kind of going to be kind of like a Tower of Babel. There's going to be like this Babel tower with all of these different currencies, and then when it collapses, there's going to be a mini core to the tower that's still going to be there. I believe it'll be the Bitcoin extension chains. Ripple, as a corporation, is going to do okay. Unfortunately, XRP and the Ripple executives know this, and this angers me and pisses me off, because I hate that level of arrogance where they're like, fuck the world, we can't get caught because no one understands what we're doing. I hate that. But even if Ripple does well as an on-ramp and as a bridge between old legacy systems, XRP doesn't participate because it's an inflationary token that's not even respected by the insiders. And last but not least, when you're watching crypto journalism videos on YouTube and 25% are XRP bot trolls, I mean, that's the same thing they did with Tether and EOS. And that's the same thing they've done for every Ponzi scheme prior to 2018. Whenever you see the bots pushing something that has an inflationary coin model, it's like, man, someone's just trying to fleece you. And then what are they going to do once they have the money? They're going to end up putting it into Bitcoin. So you see Bitcoin's market dominance in the 60% range. When you combine Litecoin, ADA, Digibyte, and Bitcoin into one ecosystem, that is going to be 80% of the market cap. And maybe 20% of the market cap is going to be Theta. Or, weirdly, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, what if Theta and Bitcoin go to 50-50, and those are the two paradigms? You know, a VR world paradigm versus a VR currency paradigm. Mm-hmm. These are things to sleep on and meditate on, and let your intuition talk to you about where this is going, because it's not going in a direction that you can glean from looking in the rearview mirror. You can't look at the Roman Empire, the collapse, the collapse of the Eastern Empire, the collapse of Greece, Egypt, Sumeria. There's nothing in the history books that's similar, because nothing in the history books reflects a move from in real life, IRL, to metaverse. And we're going to exist in two universes. And what if the metaverse is actually a spiritual portal to a universal internet? You really think a universe billions of years old, you know, seeded by ultra intelligent entities, aren't going to have like a subspace communication network? What if metaverse and Theta is a portal into that? Now, guys, you know, we're going to get past nickels, dimes, and pennies, and we're going to be moving into like whole new levels. And that's why I think Theta is important. because theta can't be stopped. It really can't be stopped. It's like a positive bioweapon almost, deconstructing the old centralized internet.
Interesting. Last points that you wanted to talk about, that we wanted to talk about, Chico Crypto and also any et alia. So Chico Crypto and the others, do you want to touch on those points real quick?
Sure. And just to thoroughly answer Al Rousseau,
yeah,
Al, I think XRP could be a 4X, but Al, in all honesty, make it a casino allocation, less than 10% of your holdings, and have fun with it, and then spend it. If you make a 4X on XRP, please either reinvest it into the core chain or have fun with it, because I think it's going to come down or go sideways after that, in my humble opinion, because it's an inflationary token that's disconnected from its own business model. Okay, Chico Crypto was a guy that was like rubbing me the right way, rubbing me the wrong way, back and forth. And then he had this enlightenment where he realized that the occult cabal, actual occult practices were taking place in crypto space, and he deconstructed that, and then YouTube started suppressing him. That's when I fell in love with him. So Chico Crypto is a very important guy to follow. He was doing a live stream, and they cut him off at 2,000 views on YouTube and shut him down, and the theta stream he was running concurrently kept going, guys. So that's the future. Just view that as a parable, like a real-life parable. And then Bitcoin Ben, I believe Bitcoin Ben is important to follow. I wouldn't watch him live. This is just advice for people that don't watch him yet. He is a semi-retired truck driver, soul of the earth, down-to-earth guy who's very easy to prejudicially dismiss because of his speaking style, the way he looks, the way he talks, because he's got a little bit of a stutter and he speaks slow. He's got a hot life. Billionaires call him every day because they know he's connected in with the common man. And when you watch Ben, speed up the audio to 1.75x or 2x, and then realize that because of his deep state contacts, he's going to give some lip service and use that as intel, but he's a true believer in the core chain. And he, like myself, believes that the evidence is overwhelming that LTC is the de facto future plug-and-play Bitcoin extension network, and that anyone in the DeFi space that wants to be able to interact with Bitcoin without wrapping it in Ethereum dApps, you know, this is going to go over everyone's head, but at least we're saying it on video so you could reference it and study later. Ethereum wrapped Bitcoin dApps are a sick derivative of what you can really just do directly with Bitcoin using Litecoin smart contracts. So ADA, Digibyte, maybe a couple others, maybe Link is going to survive as a bridge into the Bitcoin core chain. And almost everything else that basically has you salivating as popping cyclically every other day, going up 5, 14, 20% a day. All of that is meant to distract you from them trying to steal your BTC and LTC from you.
And that's a perfect wraparound to how we began the call, which is that there's a macro war game at play. There are a lot of pieces of information designed to trick and to take away from the core chain. And so thanks for tying the knot on that, Rob. Do we have any more questions? We're at about exactly an hour, and I want to just be mindful of everyone's time. And we do these calls regularly. It's been a little bit of time just because of lots of busyness and business for both me and Rob. And so,
can I make a final point as well?
Please.
If you're on this or you're watching an edited re-upload of this, you're just kind of lazy if you're not hiring Aaron for the free breathwork session. And I'm not being a hippie here, and I'm not being flaky. You want to get it, because when you get a relationship with Aaron, you learn a skill to produce your own mind-altering DMT without going on the market and trying to buy it. You're going to get more intuitive. Consciousness the size of a golf ball has a golf ball view of the universe. You get in with Aaron, you're getting in with me, and then you're getting inside wisdom flow, not just data points, crypto journalism, you're going to get pre-parsed, filtered wisdom flow, and you're going to be able to appreciate it because you're going to be more oxygenated. Your IQ will be higher. You're going to be more aware of really the big picture. And that's why Aaron and I make a good team. And that's why you're just silly for not, hiring both of us. You hire Aaron, you're going to get something free with me. You're going to get one-on-one access, probably without spending anything. But if you want to hire me for my 90% discount, just to even get a meeting with me used to cost about $2,500. And for 222, which is my pandemic pricing, that's a pretty good deal because I'm giving you pretty much 2 full hours of my time spaced over 2 meetings. We're soup to nuts. I'm telling you how to get your wallets going, how to purchase the crypto, how to do your asset allocation. The only thing I'm not good at, and I won't do anymore because I don't want to disappoint my clients, is I'm not going to offer like online technical assistance with like technical questions. Oh, Rob, how do I do this? Go from Theta to Trezor, stuff like that. Just because I'm in a very dynamic marriage where my wife's my tech person, but she also has a 2-year-old and 2 other boys, and I just don't want to fight with her over business. So you're going to get coaching from me, and if you take good notes, you're going to be able to figure out the technical stuff via technical support at Trezor, which is a wallet, or Theta, which is a great community. But you're just not going to have me on call anymore for like screen-to-screen troubleshooting. You know what I'm saying? But we're cheap. We're a million times more, value than any fee you end up paying us. How's that for an
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. But and also, you guys got to have a clean temple when you get a lot of money, because as Rob and I both know, we've both had that influx of energy, and when you do, it can throw you off balance. And so it's really, the breath is about getting you in balance and ready when you encounter the wealth that you will with crypto. But really, it's the inner wealth that we want to also cultivate at the same time.
I mean, I thought I was a pretty disciplined guy. I had done the Tony Robbins fire walks, and I had done all the NLP training, and I still got hypomanic when I was making more money per week than most people were making a year. And, I was raised Catholic. I was praying on it every day. It doesn't fucking matter. Your nervous system is going to react to crack when you stick crack in your nervous system. Right. And when you become a millionaire, like by next year, which you will be if you're a client of ours, you're going to need our like emotional coaching as well, I think.